our meditation this morning are recorded for us in our gospel. We just read from Luke chapter 7 as summarized in this verse. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to the Father. This is God. Fellow redeemed by a compassionate and gracious Savior. When I was in the accounting business, before I went and studied for the ministry, I was an auditor for a couple of years, and one of the jobs that I was sent on was which we occasionally had to do, was when companies were taking inventories, we would have to be there as part of their inventory taking to make sure that the procedure was going well, and to physically watch and see that what they would have on their books, what was recorded in the inventory, actually was there. One of the assignments I had was to go to a company that made caskets. And so I had to go and to the place and was there to literally count and look at caskets. And I can tell you, even I remember going through that, it just felt strange going up to and looking at all these caskets and everything that was there and looking at and counting. It just seemed a little bit queasy. Is it something for us to feel queasy when we think about death? This morning, we are reminded again that as Jesus touched the coffin, and we'll talk about what that coffin is in a second, we are reminded again that Jesus has control over all of life, that Jesus does have control over life and death, and it isn't just a matter of control, but it's also one that is motivated by compassion, mercy, and grace. It's compassion. And if you combine that compassion and that power, boy, that changes the way that we hopefully look at our lives. This morning, let's emphasize for us and each of us touching a coffin. Let's get over our fears in life and live as if we have a compassionate, powerful God involved in our lives. Touch that coffin as we gaze at Jesus' compassion. Gaze at Jesus' compassion as we grasp and take hold of, grasp His power, and as we glorify Jesus. This morning, as you heard that story, this miracle that was recorded for us in Luke, it involves the city of Nain. And if you look in your bulletin, you maybe look and you can see a map that is there, a map that explains where Jesus was and the circumstances where he is. It's good when you read Bible stories to have a little figure, at least in your mind, a little bit of what is happening, where Jesus is. Last week we had Jesus' healing of a Roman centurion servant in the city of Capernaum. And you can see, which is where we begin from that, because Jesus had left Capernaum, and if you look on your map, you'll see that Capernaum is to the west, the northwest of the Sea of Galilee. So Jesus is up north. And as he's going down, it's about a 20-mile walk. If you look on that map, you'll see it's a 20-mile walk down to, if you go down south and you go a little west, you will see that there is Nain. You have to go below the Sea of Galilee. You see Nain there on the lower part of the map, the left-hand part. There's the city of Nain. So Jesus is walking through those areas. Even if you look through the area around the Sea of Galilee, if you found Capernaum, you're going down, you see on the map Magdala. Maybe that reminds you of Mary of Magdalene. She's called Magdalene because she came from Magdala. And as you go on, you can see from, if you go to the left or you go west on the map, you can see there's Cana, where Jesus also had other miracles. We know the miracle of the turning of the water into wine that is also there. Then if you go from Cana straight down to Nain, you'll also see, if you go up, it's a little to the northwest or up to the left a little bit, there's Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. So Jesus is walking. As you look at all the miracles and the things that remind you that Jesus did, he comes in. We have Jesus coming in, walking down to that city of Nain. And that city of Nain is one that was, it's a small village. It was called, in Hebrew it means pleasant. And if you even look at that on the map, you can see it may have been named that because it was built on a hillside. Although the modern city is actually still there. There's about 1,400 people or so that live there. It may not be exactly in the same location, but it was on a hillside, and it was something overlooking a plain. And you can see the mountains that are there in the map, Mount Tabor and the other mountains that are there around that. So we've got a beautiful view of this city of Nain. It was also an area because it was in the hilltops, and much of what in Jesus' day, many of the tombs were cut out of rock. And so that's why they were going outside the city, probably to a tomb that would be, a person would be laid, a young boy, and the rocks were outside the city. And whether there was a gate there, many of the cities in Jerusalem, the bigger ones would have a gate, a wall surrounding the city, and a gate that would be there, a physical gate opening that would be there to get into the city. We're not sure from archaeology whether it's there or whether the word there just means an opening, an entrance to the city. Jesus may have been just seeing where there were houses and coming into the city. So that's the setting. And we heard what was happening. Soon afterward, after the healing in Capernaum, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. So Jesus had a large crowd going with him. His disciples, just trying to picture this in our mind. Jesus, large crowd following him. We don't know if they were all people, probably some of his apostles and the disciples, those that were learning and following and wanting to know more about him. And others that may have been along, as often was in Jesus' case, maybe they were just there to be inquisitive. They wanted to see, is this man going to do another miracle? Is he going to say something else that is for us to hear? We don't know. Large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, and here in the English, we don't have exactly what the Greek says. There's a little Greek word that is there that says, behold. Behold. Something is coming. Pay attention to this. Wish in the English we would do that a little bit more. We don't translate often those beholds. Behold, a dead person was being carried out. This isn't something that's going to necessarily be, this is not an accidental thing. This is taking place in God's purview. He knows what is going on. But get ready. Get ready for something to happen. Dead person was being carried out. Now, we don't really know what he was being carried out on, but we used to translate the word coffin. It probably, they did not use coffins, wood box, metal box, casket like we would use today. That was not what was done. It was probably something where after the body, after he had died, he was bathed. There would have been spices possibly put on, anointed with spices. Then he would have been in some cloths. And then he would have been put on maybe a board that would have had poles that were holding, that the pallbearers, so if you will, those who were carrying would carry, or it would be more like what we would call a stretcher, that boy was being taken out on. So just picture that. So then you've got that crowd that is coming with them as well. This boy was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. So you've got a large number of people coming out with her. Some of them may have been professional mourners, which they had in Jesus' day as well. But there was obviously certain friends and family were there. And you can can you picture the grief that she is going through? She is a widow, and now her only son has died. How is she going to take care of herself? What is going to be her situation? And so now Jesus, as we say, as the text goes on, when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Stop crying. Stop weeping. It was a stronger weeping, the idea that she was weeping. Stop that. You don't need to cry. We look and we say, "Lord, do you have compassion for individuals?" God, if you're such a God, do I get lost in the cracks? Do I get lost in the cracks of God's thoughts, and the thoughts in his mind, that God does not care about me as an individual? This one Bible story, which obviously we take as true because it's in God's Word, should, among other things, dispel us of the notion that God, you don't care about me. That's not at all true. The compassion he felt. The Greek word is the idea when he felt in his heart. It's the one that is from the inwardly, inside of him. It's real passion, compassion. Jesus, after all, not only is God and have emotion, but he's also a true human being. He had compassion. Compassion. It kind of goes together with everything that we know about what the Bible says about who Jesus and who God is. Compassion goes with mercy. We've saying a number of times already about God's mercy. And God's mercy is also one in which the idea behind mercy is being able to help out in a time of need. I see somebody's situation and I respond. Compassion reminds us that it's what the motivation is. It's love. I'm motivated because I am concerned about you. Mercy sees you're in a need. You're in a need, and I'm going to do something about it. And then you put that over the overarching concept of God's grace, which God's grace is he does things not just because of what I am or how I've done something, it's because of who God is. God responds to help because of who he is. And you put all of those things together, and we should be able to touch a coffin. One that is in our lives, a touch a coffin that gives us that we don't want to do, especially if we think that, Lord, that I am alone. That you're not thinking about me. That, Lord, that you have forgotten me. It should dispel that immediately for us. And the neat thing is, it doesn't depend on our worthiness. Yes, God does help, the Bible says. If we are merciful, God also gives rewards of his grace. God, yes, if we are merciful, he does respond in ways that we don't know. But it isn't as if God says, all right, I'm going to wait till you to get to a certain level of Christian living before I'm going to respond in your life. No, it doesn't work that way. It's compassion. Everything that is happening in our lives, whether it is what we think is bad or whether what we think is maybe happening good for us, is involving with God compassionately, knowing about our lives, and involving each one of us as individuals. Do we really approach life that way? Do we have the fear, that fear of self-image? Do we have the fear that, Lord, I've got to be able to do things to be right in other people's lives? Lord, I'm alone here. I'm living alone. I don't know if I can make it on my own here by myself. Where are you? And throughout our lives, Jesus is continually calling for us through the work of the means of grace, the Holy Spirit, to say that, no, I do care about you. I know about you as an individual. I am compassionate. I understand your situation, so that no matter what is happening, don't think that you are alone. To me, that just changes. If each of us are able to say, Lord, if that's your situation, you're telling me not to try, that you will be with me, that I will get everything, as St. Paul said, you've given me my life. If I'm going to be in heaven, that's fine. If I have to go through a period of difficulty, that's fine, Lord. I will be there. You will be with me because you care for me. You're not just a robot. It is something that is compassionate. But it isn't any good if it's just compassion either, is it? As we grasp onto Jesus' compassion, we also see his power. Then he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. You can just imagine, you have these crowds. He comes up and touches the stretcher, touches it, they stop, and you wonder what's going to happen. Can you imagine that scene, what it must have been like? It must have been like that for Elijah. Elijah, as he has this widow's son, and Lord, have mercy, bring back this boy's life, as Elijah was saying. Jesus directly saying, look, I can bring back life. Young man, I tell you to get up, to arise. Can you imagine all those things? Being able, the people must have seen, to be able to then grasp onto Jesus' power and to say, Lord, if you can raise the dead, and you did, then every aspect of my life, I don't need to worry. You're compassionate. Lord, if I touch the coffin, something that we would be afraid. Jesus touches that stretcher, touches it. That's something you wouldn't do. It's ceremonially unclean, possibly by touching that. You don't go around doing that. And yet here is Jesus being able to say, get rid of that fear. I'm going to touch this dead person, and that person is going to come to life because I have control over life. And that was the whole purpose of being able for Jesus to say that. He had everything that is in control of death. He, as the Messiah, was coming to overcome. And it was compassion, ultimately, that sent him, not just to heal people, but to send him to the cross. And it's for us to realize that our real fear of death is not just physically dying, it's what happens in eternity. And to believe that Jesus isn't just the power to raise us and give life, but it's also then what he did to forgive our sins. And the compassion of going to that cross. And then himself rising again. Do we believe in God's power that can be involved in our lives? And I hope and pray that we can believe that. So what do we do in response?